as Brother David and I conversed a while back about wanting to be a little bit more in touch with our hands-on aspects of ministry in Casa Franciscana. And one of the many wonderful things that we do is that our social workers every month take despensas, a very simple bag of groceries that don't perish, including those handy-dandy square milk boxes. You know, as long as you don't open them, they don't spoil. They got it very well organized. They do about 30 people a day for about 4 or 5 days. People who can't get to the places where we serve food. Many of them are wheelchairs, many are elderly. And amongst the people we visited, to kind of get out of our office and kind of have a little more exposure of the work we do, we ran across Eleonai. Eleonai is in her early to mid-60s. I didn't ask her age, but I know by the way the social worker her age. She has 2 grandsons, Jonathan and Cesar Ivan, both who are in their teens and both restricted to bed due to muscular dystrophy. The mom is nowhere to be found. Eleonai has already raised a family, now has the difficulty, the struggle on a daily basis to care for these 2 teenage boys who really can't move. Any movement is on her part to move from space to space. So Brother David and I came in, had a chance to be with her, and the only difficulty in the whole process was not her complaining about her daily care, difficult job to care for her grandsons. Her only concern was at that particular point in time, her house was really messy. And she was... I'm quiet when the stoplight changes, don't worry about me. So, her main concern that day was not that she was tired or she had to lift these 2 young boys out of bed to do everything or anything else, but 2 friars had come along with the social worker and her house didn't look good. Her house is probably about the size of the sacristy that we have here, and as a footnote, is much cleaner than my bedroom will ever be. So David and I, that afternoon, as we walked out, I kept saying, David, with all of this life that she has, she's worried about whether her house is clean, and we talked about that for days afterwards. I laid that story out for you, obviously a great blessing in my life, and also for David, but to add some flesh and bones, some concrete example of what blessed in the poor in spirit means. You know that the Sermon on the Mount is the Magna Carta of our Christian life. The Beatitudes is the centerpiece of all that. You can find whole sections of a theological library on the Sermon on the Mount and the Beatitudes. I will limit my comments to 3 hours today, so you don't have to. But a very, very key passage for us to be aware of. And Eleonai puts flesh and bones to what it means to be poor in spirit. Remember, we're in Matthew, it's poor in spirit. We sang about Luke, blessed are the poor. That's a whole other chapter and a whole other book. But we're looking at that piece that we have today in Jesus' words that are so key to remind us, as Eleonai does, through her prayer, through her practice, through the grace of God, whatever it is, she lives that out. Acknowledging everything she has is a gift of God, and everything good that she has is a gift of God, and the way that she will grow and become more and more human in her life is to share that freely with others. In this particular case, the daily struggle that she has with Jonathan and Cesar Ivan in their difficulties. Never complaining, a spirit of joy, worried about, even in that moment, the great biblical teaching on hospitality as well. Because you need to understand, if you've been to Latin America and many other countries, hospitality is crucial. So to receive the social worker and 2 friars with the house was a mess. She really felt bad. All of those things was about us and caring for others. Her grandsons, even our well-being, being received well. All of that image. The great gifts that she had received, thinking about the others and sharing freely. But in that process, becoming more and more human herself. You've been around the Franciscans to know that our focus is the humanity of Jesus. And Jesus lived his humanity in perfection and give us that model. And giving everything that was good back to his Father and giving us that model of human life. And people like Ellie and I, you all probably have met people like her, help us get closer to that whole sense. Being poor in spirit. Celebrating the great gift of God that we have received and then sharing that freely, and in the process, blessing others and being blessed yourself, becoming more and more human as Jesus models for us. St. Francis of Assisi, have you heard of St. Francis of Assisi? Reflected on this passage, and he said, The people who are really poor in spirit are ones who hate themselves and love the enemies who slap them in the face. You know, it was tough words, from that context of the 13th century as Francis speaks. But as he reflected on this passage, I think we still can learn a lot, even about the life of Ellie and I that we have been blessed to know in Guaymas where we work. Biblically, hating yourself is still that sense of putting the other first. Not denying that we are temples of the Holy Spirit, we're sons and daughters of God, but something about hating yourself, putting yourself aside, putting the other first, as Francis reflects. And then secondly, loving the enemies that slap us in the face. Ellie and I lives in a violent neighborhood that I know of. She hasn't suffered directly from any violence in the neighborhood, but you would have to admit, as a woman in her 60s, for two, not just one, but two teenagers with muscular dystrophy that require that kind of experience, require that kind of work, and that kind of care, probably was a slap in the face for her. In the midst of that slap in the face, she loves deeply. All of us know people like her, but we're here to share our experience, how we run into many wonderful people like that in our work in Guaymas. And as we reflected as a board and where we want to go and moving ahead, we're really looking to affirm that whole aspect, particularly in our Franciscan tradition of focusing more on solidarity and not so much on charity. Charity is great. I never refuse a check from anybody to help people in Guaymas. But when we move to that whole level of solidarity, we connect with the spirit of Francis, who, according to experts, after the word God and Lord, used brother the most in his writings. That it's not us up here to the poor people in Guaymas, that they are our brothers and sisters, that they teach us more and more and more what it means to live out the Holy Gospel, to be more human. And in the gifts and resources that we have before and poor in spirit, share with them, including our faith journey, not just our resources, and connect with them. Brother to brother, sister to sister, brother to sister, and sister to brother. That's the Franciscan vision. That's a connection that we are seeking to develop more and more. One of our board members recently, after he had been to Guaymas to visit, came back and was praying and struggling. He said, as we move ahead, I have this vision of a Franciscan tree of life. And we're all in this together, sisters and brothers. It's not there in Guaymas and here. We all can learn from each other. Their experience of the gospel that gives insight to us, and our experience of the gospel that gives insights to them. We share our faith and our financial resources that we can, and they celebrate God's gift in receiving that and offer us a faith journey and blessings in another way. So as I hear today, there'll be lots of great stuff for you to do after Mass is over. Please, and this is a Franciscan place, so it should be easy. You need to turn to the left as you go out. Just think of the friars and think of left, and you'll be just fine as you go out. Lots of great stuff out there. You can sponsor the Spiritually a Child and do some wonderful stuff. Brother Bob was just with us. You'll see all kinds of data. We're with over 800 people in 4 days. An OBGYN came from Tijuana to help us out. All kinds of great stuff happened. It's a bustling spirit and a Franciscan tree of life in both ways. It's with great gratitude we're here to the Casa community, because the Casa community has been so much a part of that and continues to be a part of that tree of life, that we can teach each other more and more what it means to be poor in spirit and know God's peace and joy in our own lives. So thank you, Casa people, for working so hard so many years in Guaymas, and the work continues to happen. We have wonderful people on the board from the Casa and also other places. Thank you for the support you've given in the past. We invite you to continue to be generous for this Franciscan tree of life in the spirit of solidarity and connection and relationship. And thank you so much for this opportunity. God bless you all.